live in 15 seconds.
Good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday around 7 o'clock. This is The Hang Up. I'm Matt Dillahunty. What am I hung up on this week? Well, Indonesia, but we have other stuff to get to before we actually start with that. I hope you're all doing well. I may end up doing a Wednesday episode, not next week. Next week will be Mandisa Latifah Thomas coming in, so I'm very excited about that. But the following Wednesday, we may do some talking about Christmas, because as many of you know, I've already done videos about Christmas from an atheist and secularist perspective. My ex-wife is absolutely cuckoo for Christmas, and is running around on social media right now, pushing her atheist Christmas stuff. But I wanted, it'd be a good idea to have some conversations and get people in to talk about what their thoughts are on it, because it's not just always about what I think. And this year, I'm not even doing that much for Christmas. I still love Christmas in the sense that I think it's the sort of holiday we should invent if it didn't already exist. But, and Jimmy's messaging me at the start of the show saying, I want to do a line marathon on Christmas. Cool. We can talk about that another time. But the things to note today, right before we went live, I saw a report come over our YouTube from the MSNBC YouTube channel that, no surprise to anyone, today, there were more classified documents found in Trump's possession in a storage shed or storage facility that the former president ran or put things in. And I'm not surprised by that. And it's honestly, I'm not convinced that this is a big deal that should have been a big news story. I'm mostly reporting it because I'm really, really irritated at MSNBC. I don't spend that much time. Well, I don't even have MSNBC. I watch clips on YouTube and things like that. But they're so eager to get a news story that tarnished Trump, which is not hard to do, and it's deserved, that they actually, I'm going to say, lied, and lied in a very specific way. They came in, the news anchor was there and they put up a picture of several people standing around just tons of boxes, storage boxes. They would be like document boxes. I think it was a picture of what they took out of Mar-a-Lago, or what they went through and reviewed. But they put that up and they talked about how, unsurprisingly, Trump was in possession of classified documents still. That gives the impression that they found a boatload of classified documents. And the truth is, if you actually listen to the news story, what happened is that they were under a court order to check and make sure, because they'd already signed saying, we've given you everything that was marked classified. And they were under a court order to go in and check to make sure, verify, yes, we've turned over everything that's classified. And what they found in a storage shed were 2 documents that were labeled classified. Now, it's still a problem. It's still an issue, but they put up a picture that made it look like there were stacks of documents. And in the same way that online websites that put up a salacious clickbait headline do, they did it on the news. And for the people who are too lazy to actually look into what this story is, all they saw was, oh, Trump, if you just read the chyron across the bottom, Trump found in possession of more classified documents, and a picture of just boxes and boxes of stuff. And it gives people the wrong impression. So I wanted to get that out first, not because I wanted to talk about this at all, but you can just make sure you're exercising caution when you're reading news stories and when you're listening to news stories, and maybe if you're only half-assed paying attention to what's on TV. In other news, Raphael Warnock won in Georgia, and that puts the Democrats with a 51-49 member control of the Senate, which means the only time we can actually get screwed now is when both Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin decide to act like Republicans. People are suggesting that we should all be happy about this. And I suppose that in contrast with what could have happened, I'm happy. I'm certainly happy that Herschel Walker did not win. But this is not a good situation. I'm still baffled and confused, and hopefully we'll get better answers at another time as to how our nation can be so evenly divided seemingly everywhere. Now, I know one of the reasons for that is gerrymandering. By manipulating districts, you can make things closer than they actually are. But in a statewide race, there's not gerrymandering. It's everybody in the state gets to vote, and they're voting for a senator, and yet they're 51-49. Our Senate is 51-49. The races are coming out 50-50, 51-49, 52-48, just the thinnest margins. When, from my perspective, as someone who used to be a Rush Limbaugh ditto head many years ago, and who is now a progressive, liberal, largely Democrat, I don't understand how people voting could possibly evaluate the two people running and not realize that one of them was a blubbering idiot who shouldn't be in charge of anything, who also isn't honest. I get that there's a backlash against the status quo. I get that there's a backlash against politicians. Let's get some people in there who aren't politicians, which I think is a horrible mistake. Oh, there's too many lawyers in Congress. There should be almost nothing but lawyers in Congress. They're fucking writing laws. You want the people who are experts in writing laws. You do not want Lauren Boebert, Herschel Walker, Marjorie Taylor Greene writing laws. All you get is bad laws that cost us time and money working to get them repealed. But I'm at least happy that Raphael Warnock won. It's not a great thing, and I am still stunned that we are so close on everything. So close to the tipping point of, it's 50-50, it's 50-50. I'm so sick of it being 50-50. It's as if 50% of the population that actually bothers to vote is dumber than a sack of hammers. Sorry. I don't see any reason to pull any punches anymore. It doesn't matter to me so much that the Democrats have a marginal control over the Senate, especially when they don't have any control over the House. And evidently the House is starting an investigation on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But none of that was my hang up today, because something surprising happened in another country. While I'm sitting here struggling to understand how my country can be so evenly divided, Indonesia unanimously passed legal reforms on a number of issues. The big one that's getting the most press is that they have made sex outside of marriage illegal. They've also made it illegal to defame the president, and they've outlawed apostasy. But Indonesia, they had a democratic reform after the fall of Suharto in 1998. And there was progress, despite the fact that Indonesia is, I think, the largest majority Muslim population on the planet, at like 87 to 90 some odd percent of the population is Muslim. They were largely progressive for a Muslim population. They have about 276 million people in Indonesia. This bill was approved unanimously. When's the last time you recall anything of any significance being passed unanimously in the United States of America? Our country is ridiculously divided. There's just unanimously approved a massive step backward. The new laws basically make it so that any unmarried people living together or known to be engaging in sex could be jailed for 6 months or fined up to $710. I'm not sure if that's the American dollar amount or not. I don't care if I don't think they should be fined a fucking penny. But they tried to make it sound like this is not a big deal, because police can only make an arrest if the report is filed by a close family member, a parent, a spouse, or a child. And while the law technically applies to any foreigners living or temporarily staying in Indonesia, they're like, don't worry about it, because you can only take action on this if you're reported by a close family member, and it's unlikely that foreigners are going to have close family members to report them in Indonesia. But what this does is it sets up honor punishments. It sets up a route for families to punish their kids. In a nation where gay marriage is illegal, that means anyone, any gay couples that are living together are all subject to arrest. But I'm curious as to why you would write laws that are based upon or contingent upon a family member reporting you. This is incredibly bizarre to me. Can you imagine if we wanted to make something illegal in the United States, but we only wanted to make it illegal if a close family member reported it? What is that about? How do you, first of all, prove that two people of the same gender who are living together are actually gay and having sex? Are you going to put a camera in the room? Are you just going to take the word of the family member that reported him? Yes, my brother is definitely gay and he's definitely living with his boyfriend. Here's the address. Please go arrest them. I've watched people get swatted on Twitch and other places where basically when you call the police to send them in to interrupt somebody's live stream. Is that just going to happen all the time in Indonesia now? Yep. Hey, I know some people who aren't married, but they're having sex. No, they're not gay. It's this guy and girl. It's my ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend. Yeah. Just go and arrest them. Oh, I'm not close enough family as her ex-boyfriend. Oh, hang on. Her brother's right here. Hand the phone over. I don't know how you prove. I don't know how many people are going to be harassed over this. I don't know how many happy couples who were living together are going to be forced to separate. This is absolutely a massive step backward. It is the type of draconian fascistic efforts that we see in other countries. And to show you that, in addition to making sex outside of marriage illegal, this revision of their laws also makes it illegal to attack the honor or dignity of the president right now, who is Amin, who is an Islamic cleric. It also expands their blasphemy laws so that apostasy is now a criminal offense. And they've specifically defined apostasy as anyone who persuades someone to be a non-believer. So I get that this has no power because I'm living in the United States of America. I'm not living in Indonesia. I will not be going to Indonesia anytime soon. But I would like to say, fuck the absolutely disgusting president of Indonesia right now for thinking that he needs protection from people attacking his honor or dignity. You have no honor or dignity, and neither do all of the legislators who unanimously voted to approve this. And as someone who actively, regularly strives to engage in the very apostasy that you have outlawed, I would love for you to come over to the United States and try to arrest me, because there are people in Indonesia who have changed their mind about religion because of this show and other shows that I've worked on and other shows that other people have worked on. I know you're not going to be able to extradite me. It's an empty little gesture on my part to say, fuck Indonesia, except that that's exactly what everybody should be doing. I am terrified that the world I live in is taking massive steps backwards, that we are, I've lamented the fact before that when I was a kid, you know, if you said, hey, this is science, everybody was like, yay. And now it's like, yeah, so what? We are throwing out critical thinking. We are throwing out skepticism. We are throwing out appreciation for the scientific method. We are throwing out appreciation for the scientific findings. We are in a world where there are flat earthers, where there are anti-vaxxers, and where just when we got around to actually making sure that we were doing a better job with LGBTQ rights, there's a massive backlash where trans folks are under attack in Texas and Florida and the UK and everywhere that you look. And now the rest of the LGBT community is also similarly under attack in all sorts of places. It's not surprising to most of us that a majority Muslim country has decided to not only keep gay marriage illegal, but to actually implement new laws that would jail or fine people for something that is nobody else's business. I didn't know this is what we were going to talk about today, and we're happy to talk about a number of different things. Lines, there's at least one line open right now, but please join me in welcoming my guest today, Owen Morgan, who many of you are going to know as Telltale Atheist. How are you, sir? It's a pleasure to have you.
Definitely. Thank you so much for bringing me on. You caught me right in the middle of sleeve rolling. I'm not a master at it yet. I'm just, it's a hobby that I do. I'm practicing, trying to get better at it. I'll get better as time goes on. Anyway, thank you so much for having me on. Glad to be here. I shouted it out a few minutes ago on my channel, so hopefully we'll have some of my fans in the chat too.
Good. I would imagine some of them are probably already here. So when you hear about stuff like this in Indonesia, do your first thoughts go to, oh, those poor people, or holy shit, we're next?
Oh, that's complicated. Generally, the way that I view this situation is we've seen a lot of steps backward across the world stage, not just Indonesia, but Russia too, is in a really bad place right now with LGBTQ rights. They've gone, just one step after another, gone from, banning people from talking about it to banning people from doing public displays of affection to, it's just one after another, and it's concerning and disturbing. But I usually try to find the bright side in any situation. And I feel like the bright side that we can kind of connect with in this situation is things tend to act as like a pendulum in politics. Things move left, things move right over time. But as I think Obama said, the moral arc bends toward justice over time. We've moved really, really far over the past just 50 years, particularly in the United States. It feels like we're taking, 10 steps back right now, but we've taken 50 steps forward since then. There was a period of time not even that long ago where blacks and whites couldn't drink from the same water fountains. And that feels like ancient history now. But there are people alive today who experienced that. There are people alive today whose grandparents were slaves, for example. So we've made a lot of steps backwards recently, but we made even more steps forward. So that's something to look forward to. We just have to keep fighting it. We have to keep fighting it. The pendulum is swinging right at the moment into authoritarianism and hatred and dictatorship on a world stage. But it will swing back, I think. It most definitely will. We just have to continue fighting through it. That's the way I see it.
That's kind of what's kept me going, is that I understand that, there's a lot of vacillation of forward and back, but the trend has always been towards what I would consider justice and progressive values, in increasing freedom. It's really difficult when you start talking about rights, because for me, it was, okay, you have every right that and every freedom available, and then we just start closing the doors on some of them, but for very good reasons, because my freedoms are going to come on conflict with yours, and we need to do certain things to protect people. The alternate view is that you don't have any rights or freedoms until we codify them, and that's a non-starter for me, because the first thing you've got to do is give yourself permission to give yourself rights, and what's the justification for that? And plus, what about all the things you didn't think of? So I generally favor the let's begin with maximal freedom and then limit it only for very good reasons. I think what ends up happening is the world gets too uncomfortable for some people. And so they work really hard to go back to the good old days. And so they get part way back there on some stuff. And then we have to wait for yet another generation to die off. In this case, I mean, we've lost the Supreme Court for at least the next generation. There are young justices on there. Unless we stack the court, which is something that Andrew Seidel and I have been pushing. Andrew much more than me. I'm not going to pretend to know anywhere near what he does. But watching people, it's almost like I can just picture my parents, or anybody's parents doing it. Oh, these kids today and the world today is absolutely, mad. Now I'm doing Monty Python. I didn't even realize it, but and so there's like an extra effort to try and get it back to the way it was when they were kids. I hope the world never goes back to the way it was when I was a kid. I want nothing but progress, and I'm confused by the people who don't. How much of this
I don't know
is?
if you've heard of this. Have you ever heard of the F scale? It's a personality test that was created back in, I think, 1947 after World War II ended, and it was intended to try to figure out what personality type was most likely to side with like authoritarianism or fascism or Hitler. Really, it was determined. It was
Yeah.
designed to determine who would
Turns
side
out
with
that's
Hitler.
Kanye.
Yeah,
Or Ye.
100%. I've been covering that a lot. The F scale is actually pretty interesting. It's things like, hang on, let me just pull it up real quick. F scale, Wikipedia. It's things like, here it is. Conventionalism, conformity to traditional societal norms and values of the middle class. Authoritarian submission, a passive notion toward adhering to conventional norms and values. Let's see, superstition, adherence to religion and ethics, power and toughness. Any of this sounding familiar? Anybody ever hear about like alpha males and stuff? You got anti-introception, i.e. rejection of all inwardness of the subjective, the imaginative, the tender-minded, of self-criticism. And then you've got exaggerated concern with sexual goings on. Any of this sound familiar? This is the personality test created in 1947 by Theodore W. Adorno to determine if you are likely to side with genocidal authoritarian extremists like Hitler. I mean, I don't like invoking that, but there's been a lot of Hitler talk lately because Kanye came out in support of him. So
yeah, I have a number of thoughts about Ye, and
yeah.
I almost feel like we're looking at someone, and it's none of my business. Nobody should be, armchair diagnosing people. But there's something off. And if this were a situation where someone were putting him up there to say what they wanted to say, I think we would be looking at something that, exploitative that we should intervene with. But I think what's really happening is you have someone who's made so much money and surrounded themselves with people who will not tell them no, that just keep saying, you're a genius, you're a genius, you're a genius, you're a genius. You're not a genius. You might be a musical genius. I'm not one to judge on that. You are not a genius on any subject that I've ever heard you speak about. And if all you're going to do is surround yourself with people that keep saying you're a genius, then okay, when you put on your black hood and you sit there with Alex Jones and make Alex Jones look like the reasonable one, you've lost touch with the world.
Yeah, 100%. And something I let me ask you something about him, actually. Sure. He, as you know, has changed his name to Ye, just Y-E. I feel like this, I don't know if this is an attempt on his part to separate his old brand from his new beliefs about Nazis. I don't know if that's the case, but it will effectively separate the two, right? Like, people won't necessarily hate Kanye, they will hate Ye, and it's not going to tar his name. It won't tar the name Kanye if people use the name Ye. Do you think that we should use the name Ye and give him the opportunity to get out of that position and protect his brand, or do you think it matters? What are your thoughts?
I've been struggling with this a little bit myself because I like to use whatever name or pronoun or whatever you want, whatever somebody wants to be called, that's what I should call them. And so if he wants to be called Ye, I'm going to do my best to call him Ye. But I see everybody, it doesn't matter whether it's a late night talk show host making fun of them or somebody on the news, they're doing the artist formerly known as Prince. So they're saying Ye, formerly known as Kanye West. And then when they continue talking about him, they keep saying Kanye West. I don't think he can successfully split those into two brands. It's like everybody knows who he is. Just like, it was still Prince, even when he, changed his name to a symbol. That was the easy thing. So I don't know that it can split his brand in two, but I'm still going to do my best to refer to him the way he'd like to be referred to. I'll just refer to him in additional ways, like dumbass.
Okay.
I don't want to make any judgments about, mental health issues, but, when you start talking about, Hitler in positive terms to where Alex Jones is saying, well, no, I can't get on board with that.
God,
there's something wrong and somebody needs to tell him no. But I'm going to use the name that people prefer.
Yeah, that works. I've generally been using Kanye, at least for the moment, because most people actually don't even know about this situation. And a lot of people aren't even aware that his name is Ye now. So I've kind of been using Kanye for the moment. And once his name catches on and people already know who he is, then I figure I'd start using Ye a lot more often. But yeah, I am with you that generally you should just call people what they want to be called. And it should not really be based on whether or not you respect the person. It seems to me that shouldn't really be a factor in, what you call them, right? You should just call them what they want to be called generally, for the most part.
Yeah. And it's, I've heard before about mental health issues, and I watched some people joking about, he's off his meds and all this other stuff. I understand why people think that. And as Ethan Queen just pointed out, whether or not you have mental illness, that doesn't make you a raging racist. There's something else going on there. And merely being a racist and being anti-Semitic and advocating for, sort of fascist tendencies is separate from whether or not you have mental health issues. And, I wish we were doing more to destigmatize mental health issues so that people would go get help. But it ends up just being like a talking point of, oh, well, of course, this person who slaughtered a bunch of people is suffering from something. Or, of course, this person who said this ridiculous thing is suffering from something. And none of it matters. I have plenty of friends who are somewhere on an autism spectrum. And there are people who are like, oh, Matt should go get tested too, because you might be on there too. And I might be, who the hell knows? Maybe everybody is. But none of it changes anything. To whatever extent I've been an asshole to somebody, that's because that's what I did. I have to actually take responsibility for that. And when when Ye is out there talking about, pro-Hitler stuff, pro-Nazi stuff, and stupidly talking about how the Jews control all the media, and yet all I keep hearing from the media is more stuff from him. I mean, he's everywhere. Every time I turn around, and lately he's got, this black hood thing to cover up his face and everything, it's bizarre.
I assumed that mask was another attempt to kind of shield his old brand or shield himself from criticism, because it's harder to, criticize somebody if you don't see their face, or it's harder to connect that criticism with that person, I guess, if you don't see their face or you're not using the name that you know them by, that kind of thing. So I don't know. Yeah, it is everywhere. I
don't know how much forethought was there.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he fancies himself a genius, but I don't know that there was much forethought there either. Steven Crowder actually did an interview with Alex Jones the other day, and they were talking, and Alex Jones basically said, you can't mistake what he said. Like he says he hates Jews and he loves Hitler. That's the bottom line. So that's, you got to take him at his word. But Alex Jones says, I'm not really sure the dude has an education about Nazis beyond like 5th grade. Like, I don't think he really knows anything about it. And I thought that was a really interesting point by Alex Jones. Like, I don't think the dude knows much of anything past like a 5th grade education. Certainly
It's like he
about
fell
Nazis.
it reminds me of the people who are going to agree with the last thing they heard because they didn't know anything about a subject. So they heard somebody make a compelling case for, I don't know, some law and order issue. And because that's all they've known, and because they don't have the ability or desire to go and research it further, they just go with it. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this, once upon a time, back early on in my Navy career, I was a full-on Rush Limbaugh ditto head. I watched the shows. I listened to his radio show during the day. I had both of his books, or the first 2 books. I read them. I agreed with him. And it's because if you don't know anymore and you don't look into it any further, that can be compelling. Just like if you haven't bothered to research into the flaw and into logical fallacies, into information about apologetics, you're going to find an apologetics argument particularly compelling, and you'll run with it. We all do that. I think that it's just like overload because he's in this weird position where nobody really wants to tell him no. I mean, if you watch, he gets up and walks out of interviews, and when Alex even tried to suggest hey, I can't go that far, I wonder, and like I said, I don't know how much forethought was in this, but wearing that black mask, as we approach a world where there can be CGI versions, deep fake versions of anybody saying almost anything, does that put you in a position where, oh, I didn't say that, that's a deep fake, and now it's easy because you can't see your face or anything? I don't know if there was that much thought into it, but that did pop in my head while you were talking about it.
Yeah, I agreed. Like you said, I don't know that the guy has a whole lot knocking around between those ears, but for what it's worth, there is research being done right now into an AI that's seemingly capable of detecting deep fakes with like 93% accuracy or something like that. From my understanding, people are working on that because everybody can see that coming from a mile away. Politicians are all going to say, that's a lie, that's not true, I didn't say that. I mean, they already say that now before deepfakes exist, or before deepfakes are widespread. So anyways, yeah. I don't know. I guess we'll see where Kanye, or where Ye, I guess, the artist formerly known as Kanye, goes with it. It's absolutely grotesque, some of the stuff he said, though. I actually went through the entire 3-hour Alex Jones interview and took notes on the entire thing. Yeah, I'm on my own time, just sat here for 3 hours doing it. And my God, dude, there's some really crazy messed up stuff in there that just didn't make the cut for like mainstream stuff. But like, for example, he started singing to himself, and he said something like, he said he practiced Chinese water torture on himself and went out front in his yard and started singing, how is it going to be when the Clintons come to get me? How are they going to kill me? What are they going to do? I mean, it's obviously absolutely unhinged from reality, no joke. But it's kind of interesting to note that his doctor apparently said that he has bipolar disorder, right? I have a lot of family members that have bipolar disorder, and they've never exhibited symptoms this severe. That being said, I do know somebody in my family who has something called schizoaffective disorder. And again, I'm not a psychologist. I have no place to armchair diagnose anybody, but it looks exactly like this relative. It's basically like a mix of a schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, where they have these delusions about people coming after them, and delusions of grandeur where they believe themselves to be the best and stuff like that. I mean, I have no idea. Don't take my word for this. It's just what it looks like, having been around a family member that has that. It's deeply disturbing stuff, man.
Well, we have run through a little bit more than the first half hour, far too quickly to suit me, but We have callers on the line, and I want to actually give them a chance to ask you questions, ask me questions, talk about various things. We have Mary, pronouns of she, her in Florida. Welcome, Mary. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you, Matt and Owen?
All right.
Doing well.
Owen, I've watched a lot of your shows, and I really love the perspective you bring.
Appreciate that.
I have a couple of questions. First, a comment is a mother of one son. He's an adult now. It breaks my heart to hear of parents disowning their children for not believing like they do, and I can't even explain how much that hurts me. But if you're in my area, I'm your mama. If you need anything, anyway.
Okay.
I've watched some of the Jehovah's Witnesses. That guy that's got a really strange cadence when he talks.
Stephen Latt,
I don't
right?
know his name. Yes. And why do most JW children attend public schools when they're so they have to leave for the pledge and can't celebrate birthday and Christmas? Does the JWs not have their own schools, much like, Christian, Baptist, Catholic schools?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting question. I have been asked that once before. It was a while ago, like forever ago. So I had to actually look into it and think about it at length. And the answer is, as far as I can tell, for one thing, Jehovah's Witnesses didn't want to put the money into doing something like that, and they didn't want to be like involved in the amount of government regulation that would likely come along with that, first of all. And second, just this is from my own experience, so take it with a grain of salt, but in my opinion, I think that they also want children to have the experience of being different from everybody else and being persecuted and mistreated and bullied for it. There's no reason why there's no reason why a child should ever go to school on Valentine's Day when everybody is passing out Valentines and be expected to sit in the classroom and reject Valentines from other kids. There's no reason why anybody should ever expect their kid to not say the Pledge of Allegiance, not stand or not sit or whatever, intentionally just to be different from everybody else, seemingly. No reason why a kid should ever be expected to not sing along in music class with, Jingle Bells or whatever, Santa Claus is Coming to Town or whatever other songs they have going on. There's no reason seemingly other than they just want kids to feel different and to be different and recognize that difference, which kind of primes them to feel othered and separate from the rest of the world. That's just kind of how it seems to me. But again, just take it with a grain of salt. That's just from my own experience.
So it's almost like them being persecuted just helps to reinforce that they are right and everyone else is wrong and evil. Is that kind of the
basically they want to
motive?
drive the wedge. Yeah, drive a wedge between the rest of the world as humanly possible. They most definitely do that. Now, is that the reason why they don't have their own schools? I don't know, but it's contribute that with kids. It did with me. So, and you're not allowed to have friends when you go to school either. You're not allowed to hang out with other kids. You're not allowed to go over to their house or have sleepovers or anything at all. And when they invite you, you have to say, no, I can't. I'm a Jehovah's Witness and we don't, hang out with outsiders and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely a component.
Yes, which I think is just so detrimental. But
Yeah.
but I love the work you do. it's great. And
Thanks
I've
so
been
much.
watching a
Appreciate
lot
it.
of Lloyd Evans and finding out just how they just keep saying it's the end of the near the end times.
Yeah, it gets ridiculous.
How
How
long
many
are they gonna?
recursive ends are we gonna hit, right?
It actually reminds me of
Yes,
my,
it's
Southern Baptist upbringing, because while we weren't perhaps as gung ho on that as Jehovah's Witnesses are at the moment, that's all I heard growing up. You're living in the end times. This is spiritual warfare. The enemy is coming after us. All these things that you're saying, all of it is leading to, Armageddon. And, there's a holy war coming. I mean, it was every day of my life. And I was just Southern Baptist. It was just particularly pernicious Southern Baptist.
yeah. I was Southern Baptist too, and we didn't get too much of that. I just know the last 15 minutes of the hour-long sermon was about burning in hell, But, Matt, I have a quick question for you, and then I'll let y'all go.
Yep.
I watched the debate between Aron and Daniel, the Muslim.
Yes.
And you asked a question toward the end, and I could barely hear it. And I know Daniel kept going on about atheists living in pods and these orgies with 10 other atheists, and your question was something about I didn't get the memo. What was it you asked?
I basically asked, you keep talking about the plans that all of these elite atheists have for taking over the world and making people live in pods and everything else. I guess I'm not high enough in the atheist order because nobody has given me the memo to let me know that this is what we're supposed to be working towards. And these are things, some of them are things that I object to. And some of them I think are, like if you want to complain about doing drugs and playing video games, you're not going to get me to say anything other than, yeah, okay, you want to play drugs or do drugs and play video games, whatever. It was a mocking question of, you keep talking about what atheists are trying to do, and no atheist I've ever met or ever talked to. And I've sat on stage with Dawkins and Harris and been to conventions with pretty much anybody and everybody you can name. And not one of them has ever suggested that people should be living in pods, doing drugs, playing video games, etc. It was just bizarre. But I will say that the laws coming out of Indonesia right now, that debate, by the way, for those who haven't seen it, please go watch it. It was over when Aron was about 2/3 of the way through his opening statement. Everything after that, while you can watch it for your own enjoyment, it isn't really relevant because at that point they were talking past each other. But Aron's opponent, Daniel, the subject of the debate was, which is better for the world, Islam or atheism? Now, yes, it's a false dichotomy, and yes, atheism isn't a worldview, but Aron defended basically humanist principles, and his left-leaning humanist principles in particular. So they at least got it out of the false dichotomy area to where they were actually discussing two people's different views of what the world should be. And his opponent was just complaining about how atheists want this and this and this and this and this. And most of the stuff he listed, I was like, yes, I'm in favor of equality and not forcing women to wear bags. I'm in favor.
Yeah.
We don't care about old timey or traditional values. You're correct. I don't give a fuck about traditional values unless they are good. The fact that they're traditional isn't what makes them good. It's whether or not they're actually beneficial. But what's happening in Indonesia is absolute, complete confirmation, excuse me, that a world under Muslim rule is worse than a rule under secular humanist rule. Just undeniably. There's not a secular humanist organization on the planet that's going to make sex outside of marriage illegal, that's going to make apostasy illegal, that's going to make it illegal to talk shit about the president. That is absolutely about control and fear.
Right.
Because if you're the president and you don't want anybody to disparage you, that's because you know they're going to, and you know that you don't have a good response to it. And so if you can't do anything else, you just make it illegal.
Yeah. Well, I'm waiting on my pod and my invitations to atheist orgies, so I'll check my mail.
Keep doing it. I hear that I've been to several conventions where I heard there was an orgy. I just wasn't invited, so that's fine. I wouldn't have gone here. Thanks so much, Mary.
Thank you for all you do. Thank you, Owen. Love you dearly. I'm a mama.
Okay, thanks so much. Glad you like my stuff.
Thanks, Mary. Hey,
one question. What's all this about pods? I missed it. I didn't see the. I'm gonna have to watch this debate.
Yeah. So if you watch the opening statements from the debate, his opponent is basically suggesting that atheists want us basically living in pods, kind of like the Matrix, where we just stay high and play video games and let some, I don't know what, it did not make sense. It was a complete dystopian fiction that came right out of the tinfoil hat wearing wing of the Muslim group.
And
it was one of the weirdest things.
They said that it was like a plan of the secularists, that they have like a group at the top trying to push it. That's interesting. I saw a study recently said that about 15% of any population is likely to believe in conspiracy theories, and one of the most popular ones is like there's a group at the top that controls everything, like a cabal, if you will. By the way, the root of the word cabal, the original was Kabbalah. It's referring to Jews, without people even realizing it. But anyways, yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it was really strange. It was, first of all, they just lie because, and they made sure that they had Muslim women there to nod and applaud at how good they are on women's rights, but flatly acknowledged that they're not in favor of equality, and there shouldn't be equality. Men should be in charge. That's the traditional value, and that this is a good thing, without ever actually demonstrating why they think it's a good thing. Because at that point, all they can do is point to the Quran. It's on Modern Day Debates. I mentioned if you search for Aron Ra Debates Muslim, you'll find it. It was at DebateCon too. We were all there in person in Dallas. So I had a quick debate interaction with Destiny on the bodily autonomy argument for abortion.
I'd love to talk.
And then
I
debated Kenny Bomer, I think it is, on Is Islam True? And I'll be doing that again. I just got confirmation from them today that before the end of the month, I'll be debating a different Muslim on Is Islam True? So.
Very cool. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I've been watching some Destiny stuff. In fact, I saw that debate between you two, or that discussion, not a debate really. But I'd like to get a hold of that dude one of these days and talk to him about some of the stuff he thinks. But anyway, I'll have to check that out.
There's several things that I don't know him well. I don't know him at all, really. But there's several things where he and I probably disagree. But all right, we got some more calls. We have Jake. Him in Illinois. How you doing, Jake?
Hey, I'm great. How are you guys doing?
I'm all right. I hear that you have a parable you wanted to share because you found it particularly useful.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, Owen, I've been watching your stuff on Greg Locke. It is amazing, and
appreciate it.
Thank you for the work that you're doing in that respect. Because it's brilliant. Matt, let me tell you, bud, I've been watching you for a couple of years now, and I was in the same place. I was, although I was raised Methodist, which is like Christian light. It is like the most relaxed, laid-back version ever. But I was headed towards the ministry.
My parents got married in a Methodist church because my mom had been raised Catholic and my dad had been raised Southern Baptist. So when they got married, they compromised by going to the Methodist church. to get married? Yeah.
See, so, but I was headed towards the ministry, and my pastor at my church actually wrote a letter of recommendation for me to go to college to become a minister. But like the heaviness of that on me was like, no, I need to buckle down and study the Bible. And the more I studied the Bible, I was like, these people don't even know what they're talking about. Like this whole thing is poetry, it's metaphor. There's all these things that they don't understand. So I dove deep into like Jewish mythology and history and all these things to try and really get a cultural understanding of what they were talking about. And the more I studied it, the more I like came to the, I'm like, you guys are full of shit. You don't know what you're talking about. You're a bunch of hypocrites. And the last, from the time that I was like 14 to 18, I delivered sermons when our main pastor was like on break or like on vacation or whatever. I would deliver the sermons. I would write my own sermons and deliver them. And everybody in the congregation was like, oh my God, you're so amazing, you know, and all these things. So, you know, I definitely identify with you, like going into the ministry and things like that. And you're like, okay, if I'm going to go into the ministry, I need to understand what I'm trying to teach. And the deeper you dive into it, you're like, hey, wait a minute, this shit doesn't add up.
Jake.
So,
Jake.
Yeah.
I owe you an apology. I'm really sorry. I got distracted. My blood sugar went low and my alarm went off. That was what the beep was. So I've been messaging Arden to get me some sugar. Have you already given the parable yet? Because I don't want to miss that.
No. I'm
cool.
just trying to give some background to where I can relate
Yep.
to you, Matt. Is that like
I will be sitting here eating
ministry.
a cookie and drinking something while you tell us. My apologies.
No, absolutely, sir. I as like my second ex-wife is a type 1 diabetic. So I understand the whole blood sugar thing. So I'm just trying to present to you that I can relate to like heading into the ministry, and it's like, no, if I'm going to teach these things, I need to understand these things. And the deeper I dive into these things, it's like, wait a minute, this is presenting more questions than it's answering, which is Occam's is juxtaposed to Occam's razor. If it's raising more questions than it's answering, then there's a problem, which is in direct opposition to Occam's razor. So, in time, I just was like, nope, this shit doesn't make sense. I'm walking away. No, I'm done. Because, and you know, this is about 20 years ago. I'm about to turn 42 in a couple of days. So this is about 20 years ago when I decided, nope, I'm done with the faith. I'm walking away. So I've got about 20 years of exploring all this stuff. So my family is, even though they're Methodists, they're very devout. And I said, nope, you know, I'm done. You know, I'm not dealing, you know, I'm not going along with this anymore. And they have had many discussions. They come at me with all this crazy stuff. You know, and you know exactly what I'm talking about.
We gotta get to the parable. I got full lines and a full mouth.
Okay, so my 83-year-old devout Christian grandmother, through my second divorce, she, you know, was like, hey, have you considered the possibility that this divorce happened because of your lack of belief in God. I said, Grandma, you did this to me in my first divorce. Now look, here it is. Suppose that there's a parent that has 2 children, and this parent presents this list of chores that needs to be done around the house while they're out for the day. The first child takes this list of chores, and they do only about half of them. And the second child doesn't even bother looking at the list of chores. They're like, I don't need this list of chores. I can simply look around me and see what needs to be done. So the second child does everything that they can find that needs to be done. The parent comes home and says to the first child, what did you do with your day? And the first child says, well, I only did about half of the list of chores that you had, but I'm really sorry for not really doing the rest of it. And so the parent says, okay, here's your cookie. And they turn to the second child and say, well, what did you do with your day? And the second child says, well, I didn't even bother looking at the list. I just did what I could see. Everything around me that I knew needed to be done because it was the right thing to do. So that parent beats that child. And I said to my grandma, it's not your belief in God that I have a problem with. It's your definition of perfect. Because you are telling me that this is the definition of perfect. This is your definition of what a perfect God would be. And she looked at me and she said, you know what? That doesn't make sense. And I have not heard a word from her about this since. As the matriarch of our family,
you broke up for a second when you were talking about the second child. The parents, what did the parents say to the second child, or whatever?
When the second child said that I didn't need to look at your list, I just looked around the house and saw what needed to be done, so I did it. And the parent beats that child, punishes that child, and beats them for not looking at the list. That is what you are telling me is perfect. Oh. That is what you are telling me that a perfect God is. And my grandmother looked at me and said, you know what? You're right. That does not make sense. And I have not heard a word from her since about religion or God or anything.
Yeah.
She's not come to me, presented anything to me, nothing. That was the end of the conversation. And I told her, it's not your belief in God that I have a problem with. It's your definition of what is perfect.
Yeah, most people grow up with these beliefs and ideals and understandings of what God is and what God expects. And they grow up hearing that this is, what perfect is. He is perfect. Everything that he does is perfect. Even though in any other context, when we, if we reframe it and think about the things that God said or did straight from the Bible, and put it onto a human being or another organic situation that has nothing to do with God, everybody would recognize it as a complete moral evil. Reframing it so people can get another perspective on it, unwittingly even, has been really valuable. That's really interesting. So is your grandma still religious then, or?
Yes,
or has she just kind of dropped the religious talk with you, or?
Yes, that's what it is. Is she is actually a good and loving person, and when I was able to tell her, it's like, look, I'm an agnostic atheist. It's not that I assert that God does not exist. I don't know. It's just that I don't have a good reason to believe, but it's not my problem. My problem is not your belief in God. My problem is your definition of what is perfect. And here is why your assertion of what is perfect fails.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories and analogies that work along there. I will say I understand why it resonated perhaps with your grandmother and others. There's a bunch of different ways to get there. I mean, you could do the same thing really quickly, which is, hey, you're a parent. Would you build a torture chamber in your basement and tell your kids that if they don't do exactly what you say, that you're going to send there and they will live the rest of their lives in that torture chamber? You can get there in 2 sentences that should open up about the same. But yeah, whatever works best with the people you're talking to. If addressing their issue of perfect with a parable like that is what gets them to pay attention, then cool. Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of calls to get to. Jake, I appreciate the call.
And hey, Matt.
Oh, when you said yes, I thought we were done. I'm sorry. Call back another time.
Yeah, thanks for the call.
Another Wednesday.
Interesting. Yeah.
So we have, but just before we get to this, I'm going to go ahead and do my announcements right now. Yes, Jimmy, I'm aware. Thank you. If you're in the Austin area, we have launched an LGBT plus friendly meetup group for atheists, humanists, and skeptics. Our first meetup will be this Sunday at 7 p.m. at Star of India. Tomorrow, you can catch Ardenhart and Brother Malcolm on Transatlantic Collins Show. Myself and Jimmy will be on the Sunday show on Sunday. Forrest and Erica Gutsick Gibbon will be on Skeptalk on Monday. And Jimmy and Dominic Syracuse, the director of cognitive behavioral therapy, or the director of cognitive behavioral theater, whoever named that, was doing it just to fuck with people. Because the instinct is just to say therapy there instead of theater. So I like it. We'll be together on HOSTility on Tuesday. So we're doing a bunch of new shows. We're doing a bunch, some get-togethers and everything else. We really appreciate the community. If you are, in fact, in Austin, there'll be information, I guess, in chat or elsewhere about this meetup. But it's 7 p.m. at Star of India this Sunday. So after you watch me and Jimmy on Sunday, we will then be heading out to meet some people, and any LGBT plus friendly person is welcome to join us for that. Please tune into the other shows as well. I know I've got more announcements, and I'll get back to those a little later. But John in Brazil, answer he, him. Welcome, sir. What is that noise? Okay, John in Brazil. I don't care to listen to the background music, so you can call back some other time. There we go. Curly in Toronto, pronouns are he, him. Welcome to the show. You're on the line.
Yes. Hello, Matt. Yes. How are you doing? Hello,
I'm doing well. What have you got for us?
Yes. Now, the thing is, I want to ask, how is it that that some people don't really believe in the idea of the soul? Now, I understand that there's no scientific evidence for it, and so I can see that. But what would you define as our existence or as our life force? And something that I see is not exclusive only to humans. Animals, plants, all living things have some sort of a soul. While it's not exactly, there's no scientific evidence for it, so I understand that. But what would you define as how we are, how animals are, how living things are?
I don't know what you mean. What is it that you're trying to get me to describe? Because your message here says existence or life force. I don't know what a life force is.
Yes. Life force is, I couldn't think of a better word, so I just used that.
Well, you need to not just pick a word because you couldn't think of a better word. You need to be more explicit about what it is you're trying to describe. I don't believe in a soul because there isn't good evidence for a soul. None at all. As a matter of fact, I think the soul is the single most obviously dead in all, a dead concept in all religions, because functionally every single characteristic that anybody's ever pointed to in the soul that is identifiable as real is a product of a mind. So I don't know what it is you're trying to describe. What do you think a life force is?
Well, basically, how we have consciousness, how we and all living things have consciousness, and we're able to do something. With regards to that, we can move about, we can speak, we can make noises.
I can move about because I have a. I can move about because I have a brain. I have a brain that does things and produces thoughts and what we call our mind. But that's how I can move around. What is it that you think? Now, granted, we don't have a full understanding of consciousness, but what is it can you be more specific about what you're trying to come up with an explanation for?
Yeah, well, basically how us animals and all of us, how we have a mind or how we have an existence. How is it that after we die, we're not able to do those things anymore? What would you call us living, us or animals or any other living creature living here? It's not a soul. How else would you describe it? What else would you call it?
Being alive, being ambulatory, have a functioning brain. I don't need a magical explanation for it.
Right, I understand that. And so then, what would you? So how would you define? Because you just called being alive. Then you wouldn't think that there's more. There's more of a description. There's more of a description for it. Then?
I have no idea how to answer your question. You seem to be looking for something that I don't think exists.
Right. I understand that. So I understand that the soul doesn't really exist, but what would you call ourselves or what exists in animals or what exists in plants, the living being or life, if you want to use that word?
I refer to living beings that are ambulatory and alive as agents.
And just repeat that, repeat your last sentence.
No, you can rewind it. Agents.
All right, sure. All right.
This is irritating. Okay, this is irritating for me, Curly, because you say you don't understand why people don't accept the idea of a soul, even though you acknowledge there's no good evidence for a soul. And then when you continue, you want to know, what would you call X? Well, there's lots of different labels for it, but those are all labels. They're not a thing. There's not a force. When I just replaced a battery in the smoke alarm in the other room. The previous battery died. It no longer produces energy. What would you call the battery that works?
A working battery? Or
sure. Then I would call a living. Then I would call a living being a working being, and a dead being a non-working being.
All right. Okay. That does make things to some degree clearer. Then would you say there's an explanation for the way humans, animals, or any other living things exist, or how they work? I don't even know how we got here, but how they function currently. Because we can go back to a battery and see how it works, but we don't really have an explanation for the existence.
How does a battery work? How does a battery work, Curly?
It gives away electrical charges, doesn't it? It's got electrical charges depending on what.
Why?
Because Alexander invented the battery, did it that way.
Because what?
Because whoever the inventor of the battery was managed to conceive of the battery in that way.
No. Okay. I'm going to stop here and I'm going to let Owen jump in to see if he has thoughts in here, because you don't know how a battery works, and what you described for how a battery works, when I asked how does the battery work, you said because somebody designed it that way, basically.
Not designed it, discovered it. Let's use that word. Design might be the wrong word. Wrong word.
Okay.
Okay, so let
design,
me jump in
discovered,
here,
whatever. I'm going to stop. Go ahead, Owen.
Okay, all right. So you believe that there is a soul, or no?
I'm not sure. That's what I'm asking you.
Not sure. Got it. What is a soul? Can you give me a very specific definition, or can you give me a specific idea? Draw it out for me.
Yeah, there's no specific idea that I have for it. So I would say a soul doesn't really exist. I agree with that. But I still don't know what exactly the explanation for humans or animals or any living being having our current way of functioning is.
Okay, well, I know that when I was younger, I heard a lot of rumors about, when people die, if they're on a scale or something, they lose a certain amount of weight when their life force, gets snuffed out or whatever. Turns out that's completely made up. That's not true. There
Right.
isn't, even if there was some amount of energy that like dissipates after you died, it would not be enough to be able to even be weighed. There's a lot of there are a lot of rumors and speculation and questions that float around when you're a kid that make you think that maybe a soul exists. But when you actually examine all of this stuff, you realize that there isn't even a definition of a soul. There isn't none of these rumors or whatever are true. There's nothing that points us to the idea that a soul is real. Now, if you want to claim that there's some that your consciousness is being controlled outside your body, and your brain is just like a receiver that receives a signal from a transmitter out, in spirit land or whatever.
I disagree with that. I disagree with the idea that I'm receiving something. I disagree with that idea that I'm receiving instructions from somewhere else or anything of that sort. No, I wouldn't say that.
Okay, well, as far as souls go, there's no evidence whatsoever to assume that there's some thing in our body that like disappears when we die or whatever. Christians can claim the transmitter thing if they want, but that's as close as you're going to get to the idea of a soul. There's no evidence for it. There's just no reason to believe it. When I grew up, I put away childish things, the saying. Do you know that saying?
I understand that. Yeah. I understand that.
So why don't you tell me, why do you suspect that there is a soul? It sounds like you're at least thinking maybe there is. What reason do you have to believe it?
Because I really can't come up with an explanation as to why we humans, animals, or any other living things what exactly is it? How is it that we function with regards to how we?
That's not an explanation, Curly.
Yeah,
that's not an explanation.
Not an explanation. I agree with that. I agree with that.
There is no that is not an explanation. We explain things in terms of other things we understand. Saying that the reason we are able to move around is because we have a soul doesn't explain shit. Batteries store energy chemically. So does the human body, by the way. Electrical, chemical, we absorb energy, we create energy from food, and we store it up. And what is making us move around is electrochemical energy. There's no reason for anybody to look at any of it and call it a soul. What's happened here is that for most of the history of human beings, that we haven't had a good understanding, and so people made shit up. And the stuff that they made up has an appeal to people who don't know how stuff works. And so you're looking for a reason that we already know and understand and trying to tie it to a soul label that we not only don't have any reason to believe is real, but we have every reason to believe is not real.
Right. All right.
So
then
you're telling us. Sorry, go ahead.
Would you just call that existence, maybe?
Existence? I mean, sure, we could call it existence, but
I don't care what you call it. Curly, I don't give a fuck what you call it. I care what it is. Stop looking for what to call things and start looking for what they are. And then you would know about how batteries work instead of calling it something. I got to move on.
All right. Thank you very much.
Cheers. We actually have a couple theist callers, and since we always want to have theist callers taking priority here, we'll start. Is it Chez? They, them?
Chez. Yep.
I can hear it.
Hiya, Matt. Hiya, Owen.
Hey.
Hey, wait, is it CEZ?
Yep. Here I am.
Hey,
Hi.
how's it going? Yeah, Chez and I are actually neighbors.
Oh,
Kind
awesome.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How's it going?
it's going well.
I called up just for, yeah, all good. I called up just for two quick questions. My first question is, as non-Christians, like, what do you do and what do you occupy yourself during the holidays with? Like, during, like, you know, this season, winter season, what have you? And the second question is for, like, basically all of our listeners here is, what places can we donate to secularist organizations? Any good ones that we could potentially donate during this time?
Sure. So, on the occasions where I'm around family, I celebrate Christmas pretty much like anybody else, because the bulk of what Christmas has nothing to do with any particular religion. When you think about, if you went to a Christian church in July and said, give me the first thing that pops in your head when I say this, and you went through a bunch of stuff and you said Christmas, the odds are pretty good that they're not going to mention Jesus at all, because Christmas is about family and presents, and and we even have a generally northern hemisphere perception about it. I like Christmas. It's largely the sort of holiday that I'd be in favor of making up. But this year, I'm not really doing anything for Christmas at all, because it's not a huge deal for me. I'm going to call my family. I'm going to interact with my family here. I'm going to do things pretty much like normal. It's sometimes I'll have a big Christmas with family and friends, and sometimes I just sit at home and watch stuff on TV. Whatever makes me feel good and the people around me feel good.
Oh, I love Christmas, man.
Yeah.
Christmas is the best. Actually, hang on, let me see. Might be able to see behind me here. Got the old green screen, but you can kind of see. Hang on, I just want to. Yeah, there's my star. You see my star there, and it's a Mario star. I love it, dude. Christmas.
Yes.
I didn't get to celebrate Christmas because I was a Jehovah's Witness, but now I celebrate the holy heck out of it as much as possible because it's just the best. So, anyways, yeah. Also, as far as the secular, like the charities,
Yep.
it depends on what you want to do. There are a lot out there that are really good. There are a lot of good LGBT ones. As far as LGBT charities go, I always go for the Trevor Project. They are absolutely fantastic. If you want to donate to specifically atheist charities, though, American Atheists has been really good to me in the past. And, my wife was an intern for them and among other things. FFRF is good, too. They've been really good to me also. So there's just a couple things to knock around the old peanut, if you will.
And I tend to encourage people to support the Secular Therapy Project and recoveringfromreligion.org. And there's a number of other charities like Grief Beyond Belief and Foundation Beyond Belief that work towards secular goals and things like that. So that's rather than, when I walk into the Walmart and there's somebody out there ringing a bell for a Christian charity with massive overhead, I tend not to give them money, although I do donate food, canned goods, and other things. And there's, like in the Austin area, there's Atheists Helping the Homeless, and there's Humanists at Work, those organizations. And then my ex-wife every year adopts several families for like takes up a collection from her work and elsewhere, and then goes out and buys them the presents on their wish lists for families that are struggling. So there's a number of different organizations, and the bulk of what people like about Christmas, if it didn't already exist, I'd want us to make it up.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I really do like the cheer and all that. So thank you so much for taking my call, and I hope you guys have a wonderful winter and whatever you do.
Yeah,
thanks,
definitely.
Chez.
Thanks for calling, Chez. Another note I wanted to mention is the Salvation Army is usually the ones that are outside of like Walmarts and stuff. They've had a rough history of being kind of anti-LGBT, among other things. Also, there are charities you can donate to at like a Taco Bell or a McDonald's or whatever, round your last dollar off. I never donate to that stuff personally because you never know really how much is going to the charity and how much is going to administrative fees or what the charity is exactly. So I always directly donate to the charities that I want to donate to. So, yeah, it's just me.
Okay, I just got an error message from Call in Studio when I tried to put this call through. So let me try it again. Could not change call status for because call is not in progress. Cannot redirect. Let me try this one. Okay, Prime.
Hello? Hi.
Prime Zingham, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
You're on the line.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. I've actually talked to you, Matt, a few times in your old network. We've always had pleasant conversations, so I'm excited to talk to you again today. And Owen, I've been a fan of yours for a while, especially your sultry radio voice. So thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Awesome.
Okay, so I had one quick pushback and then my main topic. So the pushback is to what something that Matt said in his opening statement. You, on the subject of lawmakers, you said that our lawyers, and I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think that we should actually have people from a plethora of backgrounds, and that it actually isn't important to be a lawyer to create laws. You can have people on your staff to do such a thing. I think the most important thing is to have people from different walks of life, and I imagine you would agree with that.
No, I wouldn't actually at all. Let's say I'm Marjorie Taylor Greene and I'm a blithering idiot. When I have people on my staff write a law, how do I know that they've done a good job writing the law if I have no expertise or understanding of the law?
No, okay, so that's a different thing. So you talked
No,
about,
it's not a different. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not. Don't you fucking tell me to hold on. It's not a different thing. We're talking about the writing of laws, and if you have no expertise in it, how do you know whether or not they've done a good job? That was a question, not a different thing.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So I would say that's interpreting a law, right? I think you and I think many other people can interpret the consequences of a law. So we hire experts all the time to do things that we don't necessarily understand. So I think that there are plenty of people in Congress who do this all the time, right? Who are
you going to answer my question?
Subject matter experts. I'm sorry, I thought I was, but if I am not, I apologize.
How does someone who does not have any understanding of the law know whether or not the people who've written the law have done it right?
I think it's simply by, I think most people do have an understanding of the law. I don't think it's a dichotomy, right?
I think that's not an answer to my question. And I think you're absolutely wrong. I don't think most people have a good understanding of the law, which is why we have lawyers. Can you explain to me the history of the First Amendment and how and why the Supreme Court's made what decisions it's made? Do you think you could go toe-to-toe with Andrew Seidel on understanding church-state separation in the law?
Yeah, I don't think that's necessary. I disagree.
So
I can't do that. So to answer your question,
I disagree for the same reason that I'd like my software written by people who understand how to write software. I'd like my laws written by people who understand how to write laws. And if Marjorie Taylor Greene has a team of lawyers in there writing shit that she doesn't understand, then she is superfluous and should not be involved. She is in the way.
I agree with you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I agree with you in terms of Marjorie Taylor Greene. I agree with you in terms of Herschel Walker, right? Herschel Walker is a person who has no understanding of Congress, of anything, right? So a person like that who's incapable of interpreting the law or to, understanding complex issues, right? I just think that this is another subject matter that doesn't necessarily require, in terms of being a leader in our country, that doesn't actually require being a lawyer yourself. but like
Okay,
hiring
I know
people with
what you
legal
think.
expertise
You
that you can find
repeating it
trustworthy.
doesn't make it
I'm
any
sorry.
more convincing. You repeating that you don't agree with me
Okay.
is not an argument. It is not evidence. It is you
Oh,
saying you don't think lawyers need to be involved, and I think they do. Are we going to do anything at all about
no,
that, or can we just set that fucking aside and get to your actual
no,
point?
no. I think lawyers will be involved, but I'm moving on to my actual point. Okay. So, my actual point actually does relate to your Indonesian topic and actually Kanye West. So, I was shocked as well when I saw that Indonesian law that's being pushed through their parliament. But I think something that many of the audience members might not know is that Indonesia is a Muslim majority country, right?
Okay, I'm going to mute you.
I'm
going to mute you. I'm going to mute you, and you're going to listen to me for a second. I don't know how many times I said it, but when I went through my discussion of this, I pointed out that it was a Muslim majority country of 87% or more multiple times. So why on earth would you think that my audience is largely unaware that Indonesia is a Muslim majority country when I pointed it out multiple times in my discussion on this? Why would you think that? Do you think that they don't pay attention the way you didn't pay attention?
No. Okay, well then, so my larger point is that with Indonesia, there was in 1965 and to 1966, there was a massive purge, a communist purge, where the political Muslim majority and the army went through and killed estimates say up to 1 million individuals. Like that obviously has a big impact on what we see today, right? And they killed communists and lots of people, including atheists. So when we are discussing this, people on the left, I think it is important to bring in the fact that it's a Muslim majority country, but also in a way that is sensitive, right? So I don't want to engage in Islamophobia. I have actually no interest in doing so, right? But I feel that oftentimes we have these conversations, not you, because apparently you did mention it. I missed that part. Okay. But I think oftentimes when we have these conversations that liberals tend to ignore some of these things because it might.
I don't think anybody needs a lecture from you on what liberals ignore when you didn't pay attention to what I said. Can you get to your actual point? I don't need a history lesson on what happened in the purges from 1965, which I don't think are actually relevant to the laws right now. But go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then I'll relate this to what I said about Kanye West. Kanye West, I think, is anti-Semite, but and I've had many public debates talking about that. Right? What he said was clearly anti-Semitic. However, part of what he was trying to do, and he did badly, was to say that there is a group of individuals of an ethnic background who might have interest down the line, right? This is what people who support him have gleaned from his conversation.
Might have interest in what?
And
might have interest in what?
Shared interest,
I think.
Right? A shared interest.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
a shared interest with whom?
Shared interest.
A shared interest with whom?
With each other.
So you're saying that Kanye is uttering tautologies. Of course, there are people who have shared interests with each other. That's called cooperative society.
And it also goes beyond, I'm sure you probably know this, it goes a little bit beyond just people who have shared interests. Kanye believes that it's people who are actually working together secretly. Like he said recently, he'd be willing to hire a Jewish person to work for him if he could look through their phone and put a camera in their living room to make sure that they're not working with the cabal. So it's not just shared interests. It is he thinks that there's a puppet master at the top pulling strings and stuff,
I completely agree with you. Once again, everything that Kanye said was completely anti-Semitic, right?
Right.
But people are trying to run with what he said, right? And say that, well, there is what he's trying to get at is that the people at the top left, for instance, the music industry, it just happens to have a lot of Jewish brothers and sisters there, right? And saying that, well, this ethnic group, they might have some sort of common interest and end up working together. Now, I think like the axis of bigotry, the most important axis of bigotry here is actually that they're white, because Jews in this country tend to be white individuals, and that has impacts on like what music that we see.
Bye.
Right?
I no longer give a fuck what you have to say at all, Prime. I was going to actually have Jimmy put up a poll to see how much longer we should let you drone on irrelevant stuff. But I'm done giving you chances.
Yeah, I'm trying to like connect on that. It's not shared interests. That's not the problem. Kanye's problem is that there's a cabal that's trying to maliciously control things and sway people and move things the way that they want. It's like there's malice behind it in Kanye's mind. So a little bit beyond shared interests. But anyways, yeah.
All right. I'm going to let Jimmy get us set up for supers, because when you call in, and I've said this before, not only should you bring your A game, but I'm going to do everything in my power to give you every opportunity to actually say what it is that you'd like to say. But if you're just meandering, you are wasting my time. You're wasting my co-host guest's time. You're wasting the audience's time. We're literally losing listeners while you drone on and on about how you suspect something about the way liberals think when Kanye talks about our brothers and sisters who are Jews who might have a shared common interest with each other. If you can't get to the point in that amount of time, I no longer give a fuck what your point was. Sorry. I wish I could. I don't ever show up here going, you know what? I'm just going to be a dick and hang up on somebody. If you can't bring your A game, call some other show first. Hey, that's the 2 minutes. There we go.
I hit the wrong one.
I think Jimmy hit a button. We're going to take turns and crank these out. I'll go first. 1999 from Greg Markowski. Thanks for the show. You're welcome, Greg, and thank you for your generous contribution here. I appreciate it.
Take turns, you say? So I read one,
yeah,
you read
go
the
ahead.
other? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
$10 from Charlie Spur. I vote to strip the human race of the Homo sapiens moniker. We don't deserve it. Okay, interesting proposition. I'll get with the other Homo sapiens, see what they think.
But we're actually Homo sapiens sapiens. And there was a cool conversation that I got stuck in, which is, at what point in the future do we stomping Homo sapiens sapiens? And I was like, I think we'll always be that, and we'll just change everybody else, that our arrogance will, like in a million years, somebody will say, we clearly are no longer Homo sapiens sapiens, because if you look at where Homo sapiens sapiens started, we can't be that anymore. And somebody be like, fuck them. Call them something else.
Yeah, I understand it's like 10 or 100,000 years roughly when we change to Homo sapiens sapiens, right? So maybe in 100,000 years will be different.
We'll see. 1999 from Lori W. Thank you, Lori. Many in the U.S. will bemoan the Indonesian law without realizing that many of the right wing here are striving for the exact same thing. In many ways, they are, and that's one of the reasons why it stuck with me, and why the first question I was asking Owen was whether his first thought was about those poor people, or oh my gosh, we're next, because not only did we lose the Supreme Court, but Justice Thomas basically signaled that some of them are open to revisiting things like gay marriage. And if you take away marriage equality, you're only a step away from having these sort of draconian laws. And I know it's a slippery slope argument. I'm not saying it'll necessarily happen. Maybe sanity will prevail at some point, but why are we even taking steps in that direction?
Yeah, 100%
thank you, Lori.
agree with you. Okay, my turn, right? $10 from Cyberhex. Together, my two favorite podcast hosts, Owen and Matt. Here's a little love for the snakes and the cats. Jimmy's okay too. Law. Thank you so much. Cats are happy right now. Are the snakes happy?
The snakes are pretty happy. There's 3 of them that are still recovering from having mites, but we think they're doing good. And by the way, I have cats too. 23 snakes, 2 cats.
Wow,
yeah,
that's a lot of snakes.
It'll be even more when they start having babies. It'll be probably about 123.
Jesus.
But yeah. $20 Australian from Heisenberg. Great to have you on the show, Owen. I agree. As one of your subscribers, I love the way you expose these religious cretins for who and what they really are. Keep up the good work. Thanks so much, Heisenberg.
Yeah, appreciate that. Glad you're a subby. Glad you like my stuff. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Governor, I keep the snakes away from the cats.
$20 from Darth Erebus. Yes, so stoked to see Owen here on the line have some money. Thank you so much. Hopefully I lived up to expectations.
Exceeded expectations. We got to get you back on soon, and maybe a Sunday show. Who knows? But thanks, Darth.
I know you love when I jump the gun and announce things before whenever, but we do have the Snake Stravaganza stream coming on December 28th. It's a ways away, but
that's true.
Yeah. Aron and Matt.
There is.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Go. You do it.
Aron and Matt will be doing their show as Matt is about to launch his website, and Aron is going to be finishing up his series on the evolution of snakes. So on the 28th of December, they will be both here on the Hang Up, and it's just going to be a show dedicated to snake shit. It's going to be a snake kind of hang up, a hang around.
That's cool.
I don't know whether we'll get more people or fewer people, but between the two of us, well, I have a lot of different ball pythons, 2 corn snakes, 2 African house snakes, and a Brazilian rainbow boa. And Aron has some of those snakes and a number of snakes that are like I don't have, and some that are on my wish list. Like he's got a false water cobra, which is on my wish list. But so yes, we will be having fun.
I'm not going to make a joke about having a trouser snake. I'm not going to make a joke about. All right, you go ahead.
Whose is it? Me or you?
I don't remember.
Here, I'll go. $10 from Jordeem, I think. Matt, do you have a written collection of material with lots of short yet precise definitions to recurring terms like evidence and rebuttals to theistic claims? I would totally pay money for it.
I don't, but if you totally pay money for it, I'll make one.
You should, actually.
It's on the list with I will put that into the to-do list along with 20 other things. But yes, I thank you very much. 10 euros from Jordim. That would be good. And actually, I just revised the definition or my usage of the word evidence in a recent debate. I came up with something that was much better, and I'd have to go through my notes. But $10 from James Call, the Dunning-Kanye effect. So I won't spoil too much of this, but all of our snakes actually have names. That probably won't be the case forever. Once we actually start having babies and stuff, we're probably not going to name all of them. But the 2 African house snakes are named Dunning and Kruger.
That's awesome.
So, thank you, James.
$20 from Heisenberg. So, Owen, for those who don't know, briefly tell us what happened with your daughter's school and the religious nutbag teacher and how it all ended up. Okay. I think it's been, 2 years now. A teacher in my kid's school started talking about, it was I think a sex ed class, or I'm not really sure. Anyways, she said that you shouldn't be having sex at all ever until marriage. That she doesn't believe in being trans, doesn't believe in being gay. You need God to be moral and a whole bunch of other stuff. It was recorded and, sent out to various people. We actually reported her to the school district. And when we reported her to the school district, everything completely exploded. It went absolutely nuts. There's a Facebook page with, the town is 3,500 people. There were like 1,800 people on this Facebook page dedicated to hating me. I mean, we got the FBI involved. There were like threats to burn down our house and people like taking pictures through our windows and all kinds of crazy shit. So anyways, yeah, we ended up moving. We were planning on moving to New York City before that, but we had to move the timeline up like, 6 months or something like that. And It was really scary. Every 15 seconds, every car that drove by would honk their horn. It is kind of a constant threat, a looming threat. But anyways, yeah, it ended up, well, the teacher faced 0 consequences officially, but she retired this last year pretty early, unusually. So I don't know. Either way, I got to see that I had massive support in the community, so it was worth it just to see the support and to call somebody out,
And we actually did a show shortly after it happened, which I'm sure people can go back and watch to get more info on the story directly.
Oh, yeah. Also, my wife, I guess, wrote an article about it in American Atheist Magazine. I'm not sure if it's, it's not out yet, but maybe I'll talk to Jimmy, see if we can put it in the description of this video eventually when it's done.
Awesome. $10 from Polly Pockets. Thank you very much, Polly. Silly story. My uncle's a Jehovah's Witness, and whenever it was his son's birthday, his family would leave the room while we sang happy birthday and come back right after and ate the cake.
Yep. That's pretty common with Jehovah's Witnesses. They want to separate themselves from everybody else, So
is this so they leave the room whenever they're singing happy birthday? I know that, so my Church of Christ friends, they can't have musical instruments. And so the singing is often terrible. They're not even allowed to use a pitch pipe to get everybody in the same key. Is there something like that with J-Dubs where, the singing happy birthday is singing to something other than the glory of the Lord?
No, it's just actually Jehovah's Witnesses' reason for not celebrating birthdays is that Jesus didn't do it. And the only time you ever see mention of birthdays in the Bible, somebody gets their head cut off. But, the Bible's mentions of dogs are all negative. If we're using that logic, then nobody should ever own a dog, right? The logic has all kinds of holes in it. It's just one more way to separate their members from the rest of society, in my opinion.
Isn't Jesus's birthday the biggest story in the Bible?
They have a whole conspiracy about that.
Oh, I see.
And no, it's not. Jesus's birthday isn't a particularly important holiday at all. It's his death and resurrection at Easter is the important one. It's just that his birthday got celebrated in December and became a secularized holiday. So it's the fun one. So it became more important to everybody else, but it's the least important within Christianity.
I just thought with the star and the wise men and the gifts, it seemed like as far as birthday goes, it's the most important birthday, at least in the book.
True.
But he never celebrated it in the book, to my knowledge. I mean, they talk about the day of the birth, but not the celebration.
He also didn't have electric light or drive a car.
That's right.
I don't remember him actually.
That.
Yep. The Amish got it right.
Right.
$10 from Jeff Zbornik. Great to see Matt and Owen together. Double the voice of reason. Make it a regular event, please. I will be happy to have Owen on whenever.
Yeah, absolutely. $50 from Stevo66, super chat on behalf of my dad, who just died at 92 years old. Raised me to think critically for myself. Told me about this Matt Dillahunty guy back in 2008. Wow. Thanks to you and Owen. Stay safe, peace. Absolutely. That's incredible, man.
First of all, thank you so much for your generosity. And I'm very sorry for your loss of your dad. I lost my grandmother at 91 just a couple of years ago. So cool that, your dad introduced you to what I do. I wish you could have met him. Sounds like somebody I could have had fun with.
Yeah, my grandmother, my adopted grandmother, I guess, died just a few months ago, and it's been pretty hard. It's really difficult, but we'll make it through, right?
Yeah. Thanks so much, Steve. $10 from Micro Addict. Thanks, Matt and Jimmy. Great show. Cool guest. I watch Owen's show a lot. Great insight and delivery. Watch my live microbe shows. I already sent $5. Well, cool. Get me a link. I'll watch some live microbe shows.
That actually sounds like straight up my alley. That's like the actual content I consume on this goddamn website.
If Jimmy would have woken up early enough on Saturday, he could have seen some really good bugs and stuff at the herp convention.
Right.
My bad.
$10 from Quagma TV. I don't know why a god requires belief to save us from a situation he put us in, let alone need belief in the first place. I never get a straight answer when I ask. God controls everything, so I'm not culpable. Yeah, this is an interesting question. I wonder why God didn't just, when he found out Adam and Eve sinned, just quarantine them, give them an old vasectomy, and then create a new breeding pair. I don't understand. Like, I came up with that in all of like 5 minutes. And he's supposed to be the supreme intelligence of the universe. I don't get it.
Read this for me for a minute. Okay. I need to take a screenshot.
Okay. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm doing an administrative thing.
We got £10, I think. I don't know my symbols. £10, I think, from Jamie Hopeful. Matt, I learned you were into programming once. Did this increase your respect for logic? I actually, personally, I was a programmer. I was a software engineer for like 6 years, and I found out that Matt was involved in this, so I wanted to find out to what level. And from my understanding, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think you were a QA guy, right? You went through and did testing on stuff in software?
Both, actually. So I did some development work, both modifying some utilities in assembly, in Visual Basic, in C++.
Wow.
But I spent most of my time doing hardware QA and then moving on to software QA because I had the QA stuff, the test process, fit me better. I learned just enough coding to do what I needed to do. I was never a developer in any significant sense. So I know about programming, and I can, and I learned quite a bit, but I was definitely more on the QA side of things.
Interesting. Yeah, I was a software engineer for 6 years. I did all kinds of stuff, but I love C#, one of my favorite languages of all time. Also iOS, I did Objective-C.
Yep. $9.99 from SH. Owen, as a teacher, I'm curious, is there anything that a teacher can do to help JW students feel more comfortable and less alone during holidays? Anything that would have helped you as a kid? What a great question.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Anything that you could do that fits within the purview of the religion, what they're allowed to do? Not really. Like I said before, in my opinion, Jehovah's Witnesses intentionally make it as hard as they can on the kids because they want the kid to feel isolated from the rest of society so that they draw closer to the religion. If you're willing to break the rules of the religion, or if the kid is willing to break the rules of the religion, push them to get involved a little bit, just kind of like, don't take no for an answer. Well, I mean, take no for an answer, but, kind of encourage it. Be like, look, you can just come out here and look, somebody wants to give you a Valentine right now. And they say, oh, no, it's okay. And you're like, well, are you sure? Because we've got a ton of Valentines. It comes with candy, just be a little bit pushier than usual. But, that kind of depends on your ethics. Do you want to violate those religious boundaries with your students or whatever? It's a hard call. They will do everything they can to isolate that kid. In my opinion, it's in the kid's best interest to not be isolated from society. The kid shouldn't be in the class or anywhere nearby when the holiday stuff's happening anyways. They should really be not at school at all, but they send them to school anyways during holidays just because they want to isolate them even further, it seems to me.
Thanks, SH. That's a great question.
Yeah. $9.99 from... Oh, wait, is it me or you?
Oh, I guess it's you, because I read it, but you answered it. So this one's you.
Okay. $9.99 from Shannon MC. Hi, Matt and Owen. Would you all tell me an interesting anecdote about one of your cats? I'd ask to see them, but I fear rejection. Also, everyone click the like button, FBMB forever. I'll tell you mine real quick. My cat just went to the vet. She's getting up there in years. She's diabetic. Just found that out recently. So we've been giving her insulin lately, and she seems to be doing really well with that. So that's a plus. It's tough. Like, it's tough to have pets knowing that they're gonna kick it one day. I kind of struggle with that. Like, why get a pet if they're gonna kick it one day? It's sad. So I don't know. I'll toss it over to you, Matt.
Yeah. So actually, I just asked Arden if she could bring Daphne up here, so you could at least see one of our kitties. And also, I got your email, Shannon. Thank you. I don't take offense. We're in a different arena than people who are randomly doing that sort of thing. We bought Daphne and Velma this year, and they're awesome. Velma will not be held and is skittish, but is letting us touch her more and more. But Daphne absolutely loves being held and everything else. But Daphne is obsessed with all of the reptiles. And Arden just added an ornate Euromastix, who you may see on stream at some point in the future. And so there's this great, brilliant, beautiful colored lizard in a cage. And the lizard is constantly just trying to climb the glass and do stuff like that. And Daphne is absolutely as obsessed.
Oh, so you like to
be
proud of Daphne, Wanna?
Well, somebody wanted to see the kitties. There we go. So this is Daphne.
Good little kitty here too.
Hello.
Daphne, you say how old?
How old is Daphne?
They were 3 years when we got them.
So like 3.5.
April or May. So
yeah, you can just sit here in my lap if you want.
No one ever asked me for a story about my cat.
Here's a fun little fact for you.
Your cat's a dog.
Yeah, I don't have a cat.
Female orange cats are super rare. It's like one of the most uncommon things to have a female orange cat, and that's Miki here, Miki.
I like your Bond villain framing there. Bond.
Yes,
definitely.
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. Actually, the way you've got everything set, if I lower myself just a little bit, we could put my head.
Yeah. There you go.
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Impeccable.
$20 from Jake Nelson. Thank you for taking my call. You guys rock. Thanks, Jake. I still love Jake's avatar image there, playing guitar with the kiddo.
$20 from Darth Magog. Thank you, Matt and fellow XJW. Owen, question: how can I give back / pay it forward and help other victims of abusive religion? I've recovered a lot, partially through both of your content, and I want to do the same for others. In my experience, it's really helpful to get involved in an online community and talk to people who are going through these similar experiences, and also donate to charities that help people in these types of situations. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
Yeah.
Some of the best things people can do is be out and try to find organizations where you can interact with other people, because one of the most common things we hear is, oh, I'm the only atheist in my area. And they're absolutely not. They just don't know anybody else. And so continuing to help build a community and let people know they're not alone. And that can come through, direct participation. And it can also come through supporting organizations like Recovering from Religion, or even your own atheist meetup group. And it doesn't always have to be financial help. If you're the type of person who can go set up chairs or run the meetup announcements, just you end up with that little extra time in the week to make the announcements, all that helps. Which reminds me, touching on the announcements more while Jimmy lets me know how many more of these we have to do. If you're in the Austin area, this Sunday at 7 p.m. at Star of India, we'll be doing this. Jimmy and I will be doing the Sunday show, and then we'll be going to Star of India after. And as long as you are an LGBT plus friendly individual, you're welcome to come down and join us. Have some dinner. I know Star of India, as an Indian restaurant, has a lot of vegan and vegetarian options as well. And on that note, I will do the rest of these after this next super chat which is actually the final super chat.
Actually, one came in as I sent that, so there's two more. Also, dang it, Owen, I was gonna put you full screen so I could make a meme of you next to Aron Ra, who this week did the show with his hood cowled completely over his face except for his mouth. Did his whole, and I was gonna do a "Who wore it better" meme, but anyway, it's all right.
I can tilt it down if you want.
It was more natural before. We'll just keep going.
$10 from Dan D. Years ago, my boa had mites, but put her in a garbage can with a shell no pest strip on the lid. Problem solved. Yeah, I don't. I could not recommend that, but I'm glad you got the problem solved. Snake mites are awful. We're in the third week of treatment, and there's only a couple left on a couple of them. And we went with, basically it was a threefold process where we pulled everybody out, soaked them, put each of them in quarantine in their own tubs, and then completely fumigated the entire room and used a heavy dose of permethrin, which is basically the active ingredient in like RID and other delicing and demiting stuff. Nuked everything in the room, spent 11 hours completely cleaning and scrubbing everything, and then put all the snakes back into their individual enclosures, rubbing them down with an ivermectin solution, which took us a while to actually sort out. Did that, then re-added water to their enclosure a couple days later, because you can't have the water in there right after the ivermectin treatment. You also can't use the ivermectin treatment on any snakes that have just recently shed or are too young or small. So we've been incredibly diligent, and we got mites despite having pretty darn good quarantine protocols, because we're bringing new snakes in, but every time a new snake comes in, they spend 3 weeks in an area off by themselves so they don't contaminate anything else in there. So while I can't speak to your solution, I can say that ours is working a little slower than we hoped, but it is working. So
yeah, the trash.
And the last one here, Jimmy,
seems weird.
What seems weird?
The trash can thing seems weird. It just reminded me of, I bought these live mouse traps, and on the side it literally tells you once you've caught the mouse or mice live in it, you should submerge it in water until they drown. Like, why is this a live mouse trap?
Holy
what the fuck?
Christ.
I know.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy.
That is crazy. 1169 from Rebuzwind, I think, just for cats. And please click the like button. Let's pass 666 at least. Thanks for the host, crews, mods, and Jimmys. Absolutely.
Yeah, you guys are at 560. I'm getting ready to do the sum up thing. So, and there's still like over 1,300 people still in here. So any of you who haven't clicked like, I just clicked like, boom, 561. If you get it up to 666 while I'm reading these, that'd be awesome. But here's the announcements again. First of all, huge thank you to Owen for agreeing to come in and do this. I know originally we had talked about having a discussion about gambling or whatever, which we can have another time. Or it was so much more fun to talk about what's going on in Indonesia and Kanye and all that stuff. I greatly appreciate your input, and you're welcome back anytime. Also, a huge thank you to the mods. I got to see some of what you guys did today, and while I was distracted with one of them, our mods are just awesome. And I will tolerate people in chat fucking with me way quicker than I'll tolerate them fucking with our mods. I need the mods. I don't need people who are fucking with them. But for the third time now, this Sunday on the Sunday show, it's me and Jimmy. And anybody who's in the Austin area, we will be having a meetup, 7 p.m. Star of India. If you're in the Austin area, you're going to be in the Austin area. This is our trial balloon of who in the Austin area is watching. This is not an Austin specific show or community, but since we're both here, we'd like to hang out with the people who are in the area. In addition to the Hang Up, which is what you're watching right now on the line, there are a number of other shows on the line. And in keeping with Jimmy's promise when he created the line, all of these shows are call-in shows. Tomorrow, you can tune in and watch Arden Hart and Brother Malcolm on the Transatlantic Call-In Show, where you can call in and talk to real live trans people about your questions, about trans rights, trans issues, as both allies. And if you are someone who's been accused of being transphobic, or if you are openly proud of the fact that you're transphobic, you can call in and they'll be happy to talk to you and either offer you some correction or guidance, or, you know, tell you that you should have brought your A game. Sometimes they're going to say something like that. Mostly I do, but Jimmy and myself will be on Sunday show on Sunday. And then starting Monday, the new episode of Skeptalk, which will be Forrest and Erica, who you may know as Gutsick Gibbon. I don't know why it says Gutsick Goblin.
Typo.
I think autocorrect got it wrong.
I'm
but
bad
it's
at
Gutsick
remembering
Gibbon.
names.
We absolutely adore Erica. I want to get her on a number of shows here on chat. Those two are going to have so much fun talking about science. I can't wait to tune in next Monday and watch that. And on Tuesday, you can watch Jimmy along with Dominic Syracuse, the director of cognitive behavioral theater, on HOSTility on Tuesday evening. We greatly appreciate everybody tuning into all the shows and hanging out with us tonight. We ran a little bit long, but I'm sorry, Moon Shoes, that is 15 hours away. But if you get started now, you can get here by Sunday. On that note, please take care of yourself. We will be having new shows. Man Diesel and Tifa Thomas will be with me next Wednesday as well. And we'll be talking about Christmas and other stuff. And then Aron are doing the Snake Extravaganza show later this month. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.